Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Eddie Marcus, spokesman and advocate of basic human rights for all people and a child of the Most High God. I'm making a presentation today, or should I say this night, 3 o'clock in the morning, for my brothers and my sisters from my class of 1969 from Elzy High School. We've just completed celebrating a 50-year history that brings us forward to the future, a continuing future. And I prepared this presentation especially for them, and I hope, brothers and sisters, that you get a chance to watch it through its entirety, even if you have to come back 2 or 3 different times. Now, I've prepared here for you this recognition of our class and the information that I have for you. But I'd like to begin by just thanking those who came together and organized such a wonderful, wonderful celebration. And I want to mention to you that I'm speaking off the cuff. My brochure, my information pamphlet, my booklet, I guess I left it someplace. Anyway, I want to thank Annie Morris. Now, Annie Morris is one of my classmates that lives in Minnesota with me. And Annie, I'm sorry that I don't have that information that would give us your last name. I know it's very important to you. But for my class, we all know who you are. And I'd also like to thank Deborah and Ernest Hudson and Eddie Grace and Will Bill Clay, John Beck and Sammy Welton, Leonard James Posthumus, Daisy Payne, Patricia Collins. Now, there might be 1 or 2 that I didn't mention, and I want to apologize if that's the case. Also, I'd like to mention our honored guest, Miss Smith, Tina Bopper, just as she was back in the day in 1969 and during that period of time. Also, Mr. McHenry Jones, the Punisher. You saw the movie The Punisher. Mr. Jones says he loved us. He went through some hard times, and he wanted to make sure that those students that came by him recognized that it's important that you keep your eyes on the mark. We had a laugh about that. And Mr. Lenny McGee, the mathematician. Also, Mr. Harrison. Now, Mr. Harrison and I go way back. For a while, I was kind of upset with Mr. Harrison because I did something that pissed Mr. Harrison off and ended up getting kicked out of school for it. In fact, after the first semester of my senior year and into my second semester, I had to leave and take the GED. I remember getting out of school before all of you guys, and I had to go to North Carolina to pick tobacco because, well, you know, there were very few jobs for black people in Mississippi at that time, and I used to sit out there working on that, cropping that tobacco, crying sometime when it was raining. I had to hide my tears from the rain, and I would wonder, what was my life going to be? Was I going to have to pick cotton and chop cotton all my life as a means of survival? Or was there a different door that was open for me? And by God, I want to tell you there was one. During the first semester, I had auditioned for a scholarship under the direction of Mr. Russell Baxter. And because of that, one day I came out of that field wondering what my future was going to be like. And I had a letter indicating that I had been accepted at Alcorn State University with a 4-year scholarship. And you can imagine what that is like, ladies and gentlemen, when you seemed as if you had no hope. And I really want to thank Mr. Baxter because the 4 years that I was out there at Alcorn, each year I could see additional students from Alcorn coming to Alcorn because Russell had extended to them an opportunity. And for Russell Baxter, I want to thank you, and I want all of my family to remember Russell Baxter and what he was doing, how good it was for so many of us. And basically, I want to share with you what life is like in that regard. Also, we had our special guest speaker, Mr. Tyree Irvin. Now, many of you are familiar with him. I won't spend too much time trying to describe the successes that he has made. I'll call him a lawyer and I'll call him a judge, and we'll go from there. But the reason that I ask you to watch this video is because it's a celebration of times past, and it's opening the door for a continuing beginning. And I want to state that this family reunion, and I call it a family reunion, it was really, really fun. Now, you might still call it a class reunion, but what it means to me was a family reunion. As I mentioned to some of you, I used to lie in bed at night, tossing and turning, thinking about you, praying, saying, "Dear God, let me get a chance to see them at least one more time." I wanted to say to you some very simple words. I love you. And I wanted to follow that by saying, God loves you as well. Now, I'm going to say some things to you, ladies and gentlemen, sisters and brothers, because it is so significant that I do so. You see, many of you know me as Eddie B. Porter, and now you understand that I'm Eddie B. Marcus. But let me tell you, the things that I want to share with you comes from God. Now, please don't turn me off. God is truly real. Now, let me tell you why I say that. I don't say that God is real because I read it in a book. I don't say that God is real because I heard it in church, in Sunday school, though I did, get information through these sources. But I say to you that God is real because what God did for me. Let me share one or two with you. I was telling my cousin Jesse McClung that one day, down in Itabena, they got a lake called Roebuck. And it's not a great big lake. I don't know how long it is, but it's not a great big lake. But it was big enough for the guys to go in and swim and have a wonderful time. And if you couldn't really swim, if you could only dog paddle, you had a little mud pool, I call it that sometimes. And I used to sit there and do my little dog paddling, practicing. And I would watch the big guys out in the middle of the lake. Some of them on inner tubes. Others were just out there doing their thing. And I used to admire that. Or did I want to be like that? I wanted them to come out one day and we were going to all go and swim out there in the lake. And I was going to be one with them. Not in the mud pole and the more paddling, dog paddling. I was going to be with them. But I thought if I couldn't do it, if I tried it and couldn't do it, they might laugh at me. So, being a child, deciding to do crazy things, I made a plan to go out there one day before any of those guys got out there. And I was going to do a practice run. I was going to swim across the lake. And then I would be sure, without a doubt, that I could do it. I really didn't have any doubt. That's why I made that decision. And so one day, while no one was out there but me, there might have been, I made that effort. I started dog paddling out toward the lake, out toward the middle. I didn't get to the middle. I got about a third out there. And I looked up the lake and I looked down the lake. And when I looked in one direction, I saw a tree trunk sticking up out of the water. And on that tree trunk was a moccasin. Now, I was going to swim across the lake. I wasn't going out there to fight with moccasins. So I screamed. I think I screamed like a girl. You know how that can be. And when I did, the snake turned around and looked at me and dropped in the water. Oh, you think I didn't panic? Man, I started splashing, 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 and I realized that I really wasn't moving. I was just splashing. And I looked back over there for the snake. I didn't see anything. So in my mind, that snake was on his way to take care of me. And so, I don't know what happened. I must have said a prayer right fast because all of a sudden, I started swimming. And I must have been swimming mighty fast, or that snake was swimming mighty slow. However, when I got to the edge, I pulled myself up out of the water. And as soon as I did that, the snake came right up where I was, came up out of the water. And I saw it. And what I did as I was gathering my clothes, because he was still in the water, the snake went over to the side in shallow water and curved up and stared at me. Now, for a long time, I was thinking that I beat that snake. I was out swimming the snake. Incidentally, I didn't get back in that lake again. But as time passed, and I had seen so many other people who were swimming and drowned, and I started thinking, why didn't I drown? And something spoke to me and said it was because God used that snake to send an ignorant, silly kid out of that water before he did drown. And so I began to understand that it wasn't so much of me. It was God protecting me. And so I give God that glory. But at that time, I really didn't truly understand until one day I was in the cotton fields picking cotton. I hope you don't mind me telling you the story. And I was picking cotton. I'm walking straddle one row, and I got my hoe. Most of you know what I'm talking about because you did the same thing. You picked and chopped some cotton. So I'm hoeing one row, and I'm walking straddle the other. And all of a sudden, I was paralyzed. I could not move. Couldn't move. Hair started standing up on the back of my neck. So I'm wondering what's going on. I stood there, and all of a sudden I started getting calm again, and I went to finish taking the hoe and chopping that spot. But as I did it, something snatched that hoe out of my hand, turned me around. I didn't do it, and had me running crazy. I mean, everybody was on, Eddie B, what's wrong, what's wrong? I said, I don't know. But I got a safe distance because I stopped being afraid, but I was curious now. So I went back to investigate to see what was going on. And as I, tipped back up to where I was, I picked up my hoe, and I started just looking, leaning the cotton back to see if there was anything that was causing me to feel the fear I had. And as I did, I noticed that the next step that I had taken, if I had taken it, there was a big, thick cottonmouth moccasin standing up in those cotton stalks. And if I had gone in that step, I don't know if that snake would have bit me, but if I had realized that that snake was between my legs, I'd have had a heart attack right there. So what I recognized here again, that there was a power that I couldn't see, a power that I couldn't touch, I couldn't feel, but that power was able to recognize me and the situation of danger that I was in. But that wasn't all. It was able to cause me to drop that working tool, to turn around and run to safety. That's when I knew God. That's when I knew God. All the people in the field, nobody could help me. Mom and Daddy, no one could help me. Hey, I couldn't even help myself. But there was a power that caused me to respond in such a way that I could stand here today and speak to you. Now to me, that was God. I didn't get that out of a book. I didn't get that out of scripture. I didn't get that out of listening to anyone else. I got that by being stupid and receiving a blessing from God and recognizing what it was for. Now, what does that tell me? That tells me that if a miracle comes into your life, a miracle is something that no one else can do for you, nor can they understand, except you. And by receiving that miracle, it puts you in a position that other people are not in if they haven't had a miracle. And that is to know God. And by knowing God, you have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to advocate for that spirit that humans can't see, but all of the evidence is around us. I have evidence to say what that spirit did to my life. And as I am satisfied with that, then I have also a calling to take my voice and use it. Let the spirit be used and refer to you the kind of love that God has shared with me. And I just wanted to say that with you because I want to talk to you about God, and I want you to understand why I'm talking to you about God. Now, that doesn't mean I'm perfect. That doesn't mean that, no, you know I'm not perfect. All of you guys and sisters and brothers, you know I'm not perfect. But I do know what I do know. And in time, God brought me to the point where he sent me into the wilderness. Now, what was the purpose of the wilderness? To teach me. You know that you heard the expression, who God chooses or who calls, he qualifies. So he sent me into the wilderness to qualify me. And when I say wilderness, I'm talking about the wilderness of life. But specifically, I used to work for the Veterans Administration in Chicago, called myself a counselor, looking forward to a big life and going to have all kinds of good times. But I recognized so much pain in Chicago till one day something struck me and said, Eddie, what are you going to do? Your people that raised you, I was raised by my great-grandparents. They are all dead, and you are out here living, having fun. Do you know that if they knew what you were doing, they'd just turn over in their graves? And I began to think about that. And I made a decision. I made a decision that this pain that I saw was too much to bear. And I wanted it to stop. I wanted it to end. And I wanted to play a major role in it. Well, some things happened, ladies and gentlemen, that gave me the opportunity. I stopped working at the Veterans Administration and I started washing storefront windows just to have some change to survive. Trying to make it and be a big shot kind of left me. Anyway, I ended up going to the Navy, and I got a chance to travel at least about halfway around the world and experience some things I never would have perhaps if I had not been in the Navy. At least since I've been out of the Navy, I haven't experienced those kinds of things. So for that, I'm very grateful. But coming out of the Navy, I was chosen one day to go on a faith mission. Now, you know, a faith mission is going someplace without security, without money, and you know that your faith is going to get you there. So one day I had a tank full of gas in my car and about 50 bucks, and I was made out of this little itinerary where I was going to travel in different states, and I wanted to go through states where I at least knew somebody. So if things got tight, I could probably knock on a door of one of my brothers or sisters, and they could help me get along. But as I left, I went in the wrong direction. And having just emptied that tank of gas and $50 left in my pocket, I stopped at a service station. Now, leaving Minnesota, I had planned to go towards Chicago, but I ended up in North Dakota. So I got on my knees at that gas pump as I was getting ready to put some gas in it, and I asked God, I said, Lord, you know, you sent me out here, and I find that I'm not going where I thought I was going. What should I do? The Spirit spoke to me just as I'm speaking to you. It said, this is supposed to be a mission of faith. Now, if it's truly faith, you go forward. And if you doubt it, then go back home. I made my decision right there. It was plain as day to me to go forward. And having made this decision, the next information I got was this: that the church and the nation of the people of America were on the wrong track. They were on the path to hell. Keep a daily note of the things that's going on, just so you can be assured that what I've given you is true. Ladies and gentlemen, I was gone for several months, traveling across the country. And I went through some hard times. Sometimes I had to sleep at dump yards. But it was all good. It gave me a chance to study. It gave me a chance to just go through scripture, because I wanted to understand here again what you, those of you who go to church all the time, I wanted to be familiar with that. Now, I'm going to jump ahead, because a lot of things that I was involved in got me in prison. When I was in the Navy, I decided that Ronald Reagan was the president. He was causing too much pain and suffering to some people. Some people loved everything he did, but he was causing pain and suffering. And I'm in the military under his authority and talking about God. I refused to take orders. So I got imprisoned in the Philippines. I was given an amount of time, but it appears that even God was working there, because when I went into the prisons, I felt like a king. I felt like I was on top of the world. And so, obviously, the prisoners wanted to know what was wrong with me, you know. So when we got introduced and we started talking, I started sharing with them the reasons that they found themselves in prison. I started sharing with them some things that they weren't aware of. And so the holding head down their heads and feeling bad gave them the ability, now that they were having conversations with me, to lift their heads up and to feel good again. Doing that got me put in solitary confinement several times. And so my prison time was reduced, and I thought I was being shipped back to San Francisco. I ended up going back to Japan. Japan was my home port while in the Navy. And so I was investigated. I'm sure the Navy intelligence stuck me through some changes, so if I came out of the military talking some smack, they would try to embarrass me by some of the things that I did while in Japan that would cause you to discredit, for me to be discredited by what I did. But I know the truth, and the truth will always set you free. Anyway, I had no reason. I came back out of the Navy, and I came back to Itabena for a while. I worked in the cotton fields and worked at Valley for a little bit for Miss Bailey with the TRIO program. And then I had a calling to come to Minnesota. The truth of the matter is I fell in love with a young lady that was from Itabena, but she lived in Minnesota. And so I ended up in Minnesota. Now, that's how I got here. But after I had been traveling in Minnesota, traveling throughout the country for several months, I came back and I studied the notes that I made. And the notes that I made indicated, without a doubt, that Americans were lost. Oh, they didn't know it. They don't know it. We have been trained. I won't say they. We have all been trained. And I want to say this. We've been trained since the beginning of time, since the time we came into the world. Sometimes you can see little children, black kids and white kids, they're playing together. Everything is really nice. They don't have a care in the world. But then they start growing up and they're taught. They're taught. They're taught. And all of the things that we experience in our lives today were taught to us. Taught to us. And so we come up living after a while believing that this stuff is normal, that this stuff is the way it's supposed to be. Now, we're taught basically how to separate ourselves. We're taught things that just really does not work for us. And so, recognizing that and still open to God to use me and be a voice for God in Minnesota, I actually ran for president of the United States at least 3 times. I also ran for United States Senator from the state of Minnesota at least twice. I ran for mayor of 2 different cities in the state of Minnesota. I did that. And I also ran for governor of the state of Minnesota once. Now, what was my platform? Why was I running? I was running because of the things that I'm going to share with you in a few moments. But each time I did not get enough support to get out of the door. Anna Morris, we live in Minnesota, she never heard about me. Why? Because the people did not want the message that I brought. They did not want the message that I brought. Now, what message is that? Well, you know, everybody goes to church, right? And everybody talks about God, how wonderful God is. They talk about how God blessed them. They woke up this morning and they had their health and they had some food to eat. Not everybody, but most people that go to church will say this. And they're so grateful. God is great. Greater is He that's in each of us, that spirit, than he that is in the world. And all of that dynamic stuff. So since I am the voice being chosen to speak for God, that's what I went out there championing, those same things that they were filled with the Holy Ghost on. And do you know, I would knock on the doors of church people and preachers, and they would say to me that, well, see, I was an independent. I wasn't running as a Republican or a Democrat. And they would say to me, well, we're Democrats and we only want to receive information about Democrats. They wouldn't even take my flyers. I did not get out of the door. People who love God. Now, I understand why the people who were what you call carnal-minded weren't interested in me. I didn't have any money. I wasn't asking for money. When I got the message, the true message that God has given me, I was so excited. It was like going to Itabena and winning the lottery and didn't want to keep the money, all of it myself, but I wanted to share it. Or if I found where a gold mine was, I just started running telling it's a gold mine because I want everybody to benefit from it. That's the way I felt when I got this message that God had given me. So I'm thinking, once you hear it, you'd be so excited, You just tell everybody you ran across, because you'd be going to do your part to get your part, and everything would come out fine. I remember in the 60s when Dr. King came around. Dr. King, I mean, just to hear that Dr. King was in town or was coming to town, the word got all over everywhere. Everybody knew, waiting for Dr. King. So I got this great message of God and delivering us, and nobody was interested. So what was that saying to me? That was saying to me that out of all of this talking and going throughout the nation, saying and lifting up God the way I'd been given to do, was identified as being true. God said the people on the path to hell, now he offered them an opportunity to create heaven on earth, and not a single one bought onto it. Now what does that do? That gives me the authority to stand before you today and say without a doubt that the information I'm giving to you is absolutely true. And I have no hesitation about it. In fact, I'm so glad that I can really stay here and say these things to you. Now, what is God's plan? God's plan is this. Since the beginning of time, that we as people, that as his children could live in peace, that we could live in freedom, that we could live in prosperity, that we could live in joy, and that our dreams would be fulfilled. That's God. Isn't that magnificent? There is not an individual on the face of the earth that does not want that. But in order to receive that, there is a pattern. There is a method that has to be followed. Just like making a car, a Chevrolet, or a house, you got a blueprint. So to have these results, there is a blueprint. And what is that number one blueprint? The number one blueprint is love. That's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. It's about love. Now, it begins with loving God that you can't see. Now, I just told you about the miracles. So I come and tell you that it's about loving God, meaning that it is someone that is responsible for all existence that you can't see. You got to recognize that, respect that, and honor that. Now, how do you respect and honor God? There's only one way that you can respect and honor God. How can you love a God that you've never seen and not love the people that you see every day? Huh? You can't do it. How can you be concerned about a man's soul and not concerned about his life? This is what we know. We don't really know anything about the soul, but what we've been told. But we do know life. So what is it all about? The only way that we can show any love and respect for God is by the respect and love that we have for one another. The love and respect that we have for one another. And what does that mean? That basically means treat each other as we want God to treat us. Treat each other the way we want God to treat us. Now, how do you translate that? Well, let's look at it this way. There are several essentials that we have for survival. Several essentials that are necessary for every human being for survival. And every human being wants to survive. Now, what are those? Well, when we think about our body, you know our body, there are several systems that operate within our body. And all of those systems working together makes us who and what we are. And any of those systems fall short of their responsibilities and duties, it's obvious. Because now we find something, well, I don't want to go there, but you know what I'm saying. So these systems work. So God has systems that are essential as far as our survival requirements. So, but this is what God says for me to say to you. The earth is God's. No human being can say he made anything on the earth that's natural. Water, lakes, trees, valleys, grass, and any of the things, you name them. But what God did is he stored in the earth, on the earth, above the earth, seen and unseen, resources that would be necessary to meet our desires as we live. For that purpose, that we would be able to extract those resources. Now, that knowledge, that desire comes from God as well. Each of us have a gift. You know I'm telling you the truth. Some of us want to be a this, or some of us want to be that, and some of us want to be this, other, and whatever it is, God has given us that gift. And each of these gifts are necessary. It's just like the body. Each of these gifts are necessary in the process of creating that which is essential for survival. And it's not just food, clothing, this is just to name a few, shelter, education, and healthcare. We're talking about transportation. We're talking about infrastructure. We're talking about going to the moon. All of these things, and these gifts from God and the ability to do these things. But to maintain peace and prosperity and freedom and joy and the fulfillment of our dreams, there's a pattern. And what is that pattern? That pattern is this. God requires that each of us who have these gifts exercise them in a career of our own choosing. Now, some people say jobs, but I want to say career of our own choosing. Now, why do we say career of our own choosing? Because in so doing, it gives us our greatest joy. There is no greater joy than knowing who you are, why you are, and being what you are. I mean, there's no greater gift. You know, we hear some entertainers, people make money. We hear entertainers or sports athletes or whatever saying they got something that they're doing and being paid for it. What? Well, this is what God's plan is, that we have the opportunity to choose our careers, exercise them, and this is what happens. Imagine all of us having access to our careers. Now, those careers would tie us to those things that we already are familiar with because they are essential for our survival. Now, by you exercising that gift, all of the people exercising that gift, it's connected in a cross section. It's connected in a cross section that while we extract from the resources of the earth, what we would be doing, creating food, clothing, and shelter in abundance, enough for every individual, not just in America, but people engaging themselves across the globe would never have to be without food, would never have to be without clothing, would never have to be without shelter. And also, education. We need education. We take what we learned, what we didn't know, what we thought we didn't know, and we share with one another so we don't have to strain ourselves. And because we're choosing our careers, it's simple for us to go in and learn the information that's associated with the careers that we have chosen. We don't have to be learning all this extra stuff that has nothing to do whatsoever with our goals, has nothing to do. We just study those things that really excite us. Education, unlimited and unrestricted. But it doesn't just stop there. There's something else that's so essential. It's health care. Health care from the womb to the tomb. Health care from the womb to the tomb. Now, what we've done, we have exercised our gifts by choosing a career of our own choosing that we love, that brings us our joy. And now we are all have before us food, clothing, and shelter. What we doing? We have peace now because we have nothing to be angry about. We're prosperous. All of us are prosperous. What happens? Because when we engage ourselves in this particular method, we become part owners in everything. We are family that's working together to make sure that our needs are met, and we are thrilled by that. We are not restricted from anything. All things that exist at the hands of man belongs to all mankind, and all mankind can access from it what it needs, wants, and desire. That was God's plan. And you know what? It did not cost a penny. And you're happy. And you're prosperous. And you're free. Now, what happened? Whenever something's good, there's something got to be either bad that wants to come along. The great deceiver. You know, the same thing that taught those little kids that were playing all together, black kids, Chinese kids, white kids, all these kids just having some fun. Now they're being taught something that's different. Now, where does that come from? That's the great deceiver that's walking to and fro, back and forth all over the earth to find out what he can kill and destroy. Now, what does it do? It comes before the American people. Now, let me kind of bring this close to home so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I don't want to go back in biblical times. I want to bring it straight home so you can see it. You have a Donald Trump who comes before the people and say to them, you are better than they are. You deserve more than they do. It is because of you, because of them, that you are suffering the way you are suffering. So what we got to do is separate ourselves from them. Now we got to make sure that you have the benefit that they don't. So, since that force did not create anything, what does it do? What does it do? What is it doing? It starts taking stuff. For instance, how do you remember how the natives used to live here and somebody came over and killed them, slaughtered them, and put them on a reservation and took their land? You remember that? They took it. They came over and brought people and made them slaves, stripped them of their culture, separated them from the family, from their language, from what they understood as being truth, used them and abused them and worked them for their own benefit. You remember that? You remember how the women didn't have a voice to say anything? You remember how only the ones who had money really had a voice. You remember about things that happens today called economic hitmen who go into other countries and do the same thing to other countries that they did to this country for their own privileged benefit? That's what happened. Now, how did this thing work? Well, after it starts stealing the land, stealing all the resources of the earth, then those resources were protected for them by laws and rules and regulations that they established and found judges to back up and made constitutional demands to protect that. And so when you were left out, you had to do what? Whatever they wanted you to do. That's why some of us, I won't say you, had to eat. They were eating steaks and pork chops and others were eating guts. That ain't funny, but it's the truth. So what they started doing, they came up with the idea of money. So while God's plan was we needed one another, this new plan was you don't need one another, you need money. Now this didn't happen, this didn't start with America. This started back in the beginning of time. But I'm expressing here in America so you can see it. You need money. Now all of those things that will keep us divided, make us idolize and, idols and stuff like this, American Idol, or they keep putting before you the king and the queen and the princes and all that kind of stuff to keep you focused that there are superiorities. I don't know if you know that the queen and the prince are just like you. They got to eat, they got to sleep, they don't take a bath, they stink, just like anybody else. But they want to hold it before you as being something special. They let anything happen. And the television stations are right there showing that stuff on you all the time. So what they have done is those people whose careers that does not really matter at all, they get paid the most money. They get paid millions of dollars. Like running with a football or throwing a baseball. I mean, they get paid all kinds of money. Somebody say, well, you got fans that come to these activities. It's all about money. Because this stuff keeps you distracted. This stuff keeps the world at the state that it is in. Money. Now, I'm going to break that down to you in a little bit so you'll understand it, because I know some of you out here, you're so intelligent and smart, and you make a lot of money, and you got nice houses, you got nice cars, you got nice bank accounts. But you know what? There are people also where the cities, all cities, many of them are shut down. The businesses are closed. There are no grocery stores in town. There are people on the streets living on corners. There are people with signs saying, help me, at every stop sign in major cities that you go to, begging, because this is that result of that lie, that deceiver. See, what they did to perpetuate this fakeness was they would lie, they would cheat, they would steal, they would murder, they would kill, they'd have terror, there would be wars and anything to maintain this system of deceit. Anything to maintain this system of deceit. And when people don't know the truth, like Trump, he comes into office, he lies to you people over and over and over again. And it gets to the point where it doesn't matter. Either it's normal, you don't even want to hear it, or it's just Trump. Then you got these television people making jokes about it, normalizing it in a different kind of way, thinking that somebody's going to get caught and something is going to be done. And it doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen, because the truth of the matter is, when you're talking about politics, you're talking about Republicans and Democrats. They are just two sides of the same coin. The powers that be, I'm not talking about God. I'm talking about human powers that be. They control all of this stuff. You've heard it said that one of the Rothschilds says, and just using him for an example, he didn't come up with the idea, but he said, give me control of the money, and I care not who makes the laws. Why? Because if they don't do what I want, they won't get the money, and if they don't get their money, they won't get into office, they won't be heard. Like I wasn't heard. But Donald Trump got heard. I mean, he said, I'm a billionaire. And he would stand before the people with his big plane. He had a TV program. He represented what they had called the privileged, white, money, all of this stuff. And so the people said, well, we haven't been successful, many of them, we haven't been successful through any of the other Republicans or the other Democrats, so we'll go for this guy, even though we know that he represents evil. They knew it. They don't care. Right today, many of them, Republicans and fundamentalist Christians and evangelicals, they don't care that Trump does, but he's giving us what we need. And here, what is he giving them? Division. He seems as if he's putting more power on their side, so the rest of you be damned. That's why what's happening in Mexico, what's happening in Central America, all of these things are a result of the plan that's deviated from God. And that's why I'm standing here today saying these things to you. Because if we want peace, if we want freedom, if we want prosperity, if we want joy in our lives, if we want our dreams to come true, we're going to have to change things. Now you talk about being born again. Being born again, what the heck does that mean? You've been born through your mother's womb. You've been born with water. What does it mean being born with spirit? That means the renewing of your mind. That mind that you had as a child that allowed you to recognize no different shades as a negative, but as a friendly association. That mind that would allow you to see the things the way that God has presented it to you, got to come back. Out of all the stuff you've been taught that maintains this system, you got to forget it. But you just don't forget it. How do you get that spirit that takes you back to that childlike attitude? It's called pure in heart. See, the truth is nothing that just come to me. The truth is out there just like the audio sounds, waves, the video sound waves. You can't see them, but if you got the right equipment, you can tune in and get it. So is the truth. If your heart is pure enough, it'll come to you, baby. But what you going to do with it? You don't start going to church thanking God so much for getting you up this morning. You're asking, what can I do for you today to let people know that you're real? How can I be engaged so they can know the magnificent power of God? And what are you asking for? How do I show love? So how do you show love? When the people, especially those that are hurting, you start to deal with their hurt. You got to expose the bull and reveal the truth. and offer the people a chance to make the proper choice. Now, having said that, how would I suggest that to you? Well, first of all, I want to tell you this, that the system of government in the United States of America and all over the globe is designed to maintain itself. Say it again. The systems of government are designed to maintain itself. Now, what that basically means is this. At our local levels, we have mayors, city councilmen or aldermen. At our state level, we got a governor and we got legislators. Well, there's some other stuff in between, but let's stay with the system as we can focus on it. And at the federal level, you got the president and you got the Congress. Now, there are other little things happening, but I'm just going to restrict our conversation to that. Now, each of these levels are designed to maintain the system. That's why they take this oath. I pledge not just allegiance, but you take this oath to protect the Constitution, to protect the laws that have established this power source at every level. So, this is what I would suggest. This is what I've been given to share with you. You've got to prove that the system is not designed for you. It's not designed to make sure that any of these things I've been talking to you about that God has designed for you happens. Here's what you do. It's probably going to have to start with those who suffer the most. But it's going to have to engage everybody. You see that 99%? You've seen them on television. Everybody out there with a sign speaking about their particular interest. Well, what those signs represent is that 99% of the people are dissatisfied with what's going on. But as long as they got those signs up advocating for their particular interest, where their particular pain is, they will never achieve anything. They got to recognize that they are all being abused, and all being abused by the same thing. Otherwise, you just say, if you satisfy me, then you go take a seat. Why? You got over. And the heck with everybody else. That's not love. That's being bought. And so what you do, put those signs down and recognize that you're one. You're one against that which destroys any of you and all of you. And starting at the city level, go to your mayor in your city all across the state. In each city, go to your mayor. First of all, come together and talk about this situation. Identify yourselves, your problems. And then go to your mayor. And you tell your mayor, say, you wanted to be the leader of us. You took an oath and you got our vote. You said you were going to be this and that. But here are our shortcomings. And we want you to fix it. Aldermen, we want you guys to fix it. What you're going to find out is that they can't fix it. They can't fix it. But they can either stand with you or stand against you. So what happens next? Now the cities have found out, the people of all the cities have found out that your mayor and your aldermen and city councilmen cannot do anything for you. They can't do a thing for you. So now all of you go to the governor. In 50 different states, you go to your governor with the same thing. Here are your failures. Here is where we the people are being denied the fruits of our lives. Now you say you, the governor, you asked us for a vote. We gave you, put you in office. Now this is where we need you to operate. And you will find that in 50 states within this United States, those governors will not be able to satisfy you. So, all of you citizens in 50 different states, go to the federal government. Talk to that president. Talk to Trump. Tell him these are your shortcomings. Don't listen to him talking about what people are doing in other places. You say these are your shortcomings. You wanted to be president. You said you were the best mind. You said you were the smartest person. You asked for our votes, and we gave it to you. Now, we need you to satisfy our concerns. And you will find out that you speak into the wind. Nothing will happen. Oh, they will say, well, we can do a little of this, we can do a little of that, but that is not sufficient because every last one of you are important. And satisfying some is not good enough. 99 and a half just won't do. You got to do it all. Otherwise, that means you're being satisfied while somebody else is suffering. That's not God. So what do you recognize? You recognize that the system that is before you has been designed to keep you exactly where you are. So now you got a choice to make. What you going to do? Are you going to be satisfied with this? Or are you going to demand a change? Not are you going to demand a change, are you going to come together and make a change? And if you decide to do that, you will find out that you don't want to hear any candidate come in before you talking about what plan they got for you. No, you got your own plan. Your plan is to make sure that love is experienced throughout the land, that everybody's desires and needs and wants are met. That's your plan. Why is that your plan? Because that's the God plan. And what you're saying is that you fail, so we're going to turn to God. Last time, many of you said the Republicans failed, the Democrats failed, and you turned to Trump. This time, you're going to say they can't work, you're going to turn to God. And it's simple, because all of the resources belong to God. The labor comes from you. You're the one that benefit, and you got a job of your own choosing, so you're thrilled to do it, and now the resources, that big pie, that pie is getting bigger than it's ever been. You can't even imagine that pie getting that big. And nobody's suffering from anything. And you're loving one another. No terror, no war, no crime, no violence, no lying, no cheating, no stealing. And you know what God says? You don't have to go to say, thank God you woke me up this morning. God is running all over heaven, telling the heavenly hosts, these are my children. Look how they love me. Look how they love one another. Look how they're benefiting from the plans that I laid down from the beginning of time. So, ladies and gentlemen, my sisters and brothers, when I lay up in that bed at night and I say, God, let me see them one more time. Let me tell them that I love them. And to tell them that you love them. It is so that this message that God has put in my heart can get to you. And that hopefully you will make the choice to exercise and to express yourselves in a fantastic, different kind of way than you have in the past. Not saying you've been bad. No, we realize that we've been caught up in a situation where all of the things, food, clothing, shelter, education, gas, all that kind of stuff requires money. It requires it today and it will require it tomorrow. But with you making the right decision, making the right plans, you can set it up in such a way that when you flip the script, and it has to be planned, you won't be using money anymore. You'll be exercising what I've just shared with you. And then that will be the beginning of heaven on earth. Now, my sisters and brothers, I want to thank you so very much for giving me this your time. I told you I wanted to share something with you. I don't know where it's going to go. But the message that I just shared with you, I never heard it from anybody. I never heard it from any preacher. I never read it in any book. I never heard it from some social engineer. But it came to me, and I'm sure many of you have as well. But it's no good if we don't use it. So I'm saying to us, let us use it. We don't need a politician. What we need is our own ingenuity to create what we want. And yes, there will have to be people to carry it forward, but they will be carrying what we want forward, not what they plan or what their thoughts are. No, they're too selfish outside of us. So we have to be one. We become the 1% that is 100%. So, to the class of 2019, who started back a long time ago, a long time before 1969, but that came together in 1969 and became brothers and sisters, no longer just friends and associates, but brothers and sisters. They're talking about in 69 is when they went to the moon. They're talking about going back to the moon. But they're not talking about what I just shared with you. What I just shared with you, to me, is the most important thing that human beings could ever do. And after they've accomplished this, then there's no limit to what they can do. So, having said that, once again, I want to thank you. I'm your brother, not Eddie B. Potter, but you can call me that. My name is Eddie Marcus now. I got adopted. And it's all good. And so until next time, if there is another time that we get together, let it be at a time when we have exercised our ingenuity, that we've engaged ourselves in the process, and the world is not getting worse, but it's shining like a, what does woman used to say? A $2 watch. Thank you. Bye-bye.